Remember when media wanted you to revolve around their schedule? It told you where, how, when. Well, something happened along the way. We changed. Words like on demand, streaming, and interactive all became part of the new media landscape. Today's media isn't about us. It's about you. When you want it, how you want it, where you want it. So we figured it was time to carve out our own space. A space to connect with you. Giving you the shows and content you want from the hosts you love and love to hate. Laughs? Sure. Insight? Of course. Breaking news when it happens and going along on the stories that matter. Giving you something new. This is media for the new world. Your world. A platform for an ever-busy, ever-mobile, ever-evolving audience like you. This is about something new. Something you've always wanted. Something Iowa has needed. And now it has. This is Iowa Everywhere.
All right, let's get after it. September 1 edition of Two Guys Named Chris. Week 1 is officially upon us in college football. I'm Chris Williams.
Yes.
Joined by Chris Hassel in the sunny state of Florida.
Chris.
The Sunshine State.
I want to cry.
How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Happy to be with you on Two Guys Named Chris, presented by Fareway. This is episode number 2, officially, right?
Correct.
I find that hard time sleeping the night before because I'm so excited to get on and just.
Mine's going all sorts. Yesterday was freaking crazy. Like I had to be in Iowa City yesterday for some health stuff with my daughter, and like it turned into like a really busy news day in college football with the Big 12's deal about their opening up media rights, and then there was the report on. I mean, the way I understand it, like there's a board of directors type for the college football playoff, and they're just annoyed with all the commissioners, so they're like, we're going to take matters into our own hands. And then on top of that, like we have like actual, like a real slate of games. So yeah, there's a lot to get to.
I kind of wish we could leave that, the expansion talk and the college football playoff talk to the off season. That's a way to, bridge the gap in the off season. We kind of get all that out of the way and then you get to games. But now here we are, the day that we're going to kick off a bunch of games in week 1, Thursday night, tonight. And we're still talking about this stuff, and I get it. It's really important, but it would be nice if we could just focus on the games for once, because we rarely get to do that anymore.
No, I get it. I think for our show, we probably will do that for the most part. Now, when John Miller and I come on tomorrow, I can't promise that because Miller and I like the big picture, we like the political side of things and whatnot. But we'll touch on it all.
You guys are going to get into politics? You and John Miller on politics?
No, like the political aspect of college football, like all this stuff. Right?
I was going to say, because if you're going to get into politics, you better get Dace on to even things out, right?
Maybe. I mean, maybe that's
the future of Iowa everywhere.
God, no. Shout out to Fareway. So truth here. So I know you work on Saturdays clearly, and you're usually not around, but I bought a camper during the pandemic. Did you know that?
You bought a camper? No, I did not know that.
Yeah. So what's cool is I have a friend of mine who gives me his RV spot at Jack Trice Stadium. So on Fridays, I like to take my camper up to Jack, and I just spend the night there. So then on Saturday, I can just roll out of bed and go to work. And then, my kids are already there. You don't have to fight traffic.
Sure.
Anything like that. But on Friday nights, I like to do a big, nice meal. Going to the Fareway Meat Market, the one up in Ames. You've probably never been there. It's unreal. It's like
what's your go-to meat? Oh man, I turned the mic around and now all of a sudden I sound great. What's your go-to meat at the Fareway Meat Market?
I'm a ribs man. Like if I could,
really,
if I had the time, I would do pork ribs. I would just eat pork ribs every meal of my life. No sauce.
Jeez.
You just put different seasonings on them. The fat. Oh, it's amazing. That's my go-to.
I don't trust myself with that. I just got to go with a nice New York strip. Put that on the grill.
Can't beat that either.
You can't go wrong with it. Can't go wrong.
So shout out to them. Tailgating, Iowa State fan, either one. Support Fareway Meat and Grocery. Support Iowa everywhere. And hit them up for your tailgating needs. All right. Also want to remind you guys, this is our first week of shows. We're still building. Rate, subscribe, review on the podcast if you can. That helps. It's algorithms. We don't really care. Like, it's not that big of a deal to us, like, that you tell us, like, how great we are. It helps with algorithms, if I'm just being honest.
What the hell does that mean?
So,
I mean, I know what an algorithm is, but what are you talking about?
So, what that means, like the way Apple goes.
All right, this sounds terrible. I don't think you need to explain it because this is just,
okay.
I don't.
See, now you need to back away from the mic. You're really hot now.
Wait, I'm too close to it now? What the hell,
man? Yeah, just back away from it just a little bit.
See, I'm used to just having, you put it on.
There you go. That's perfect.
You put it on your shirt and you clip it there and you don't have to think about it. Now I got this big monstrosity in front of me.
We're actually getting some of those for our studio. If you're
are you?
Iowa,
okay, great.
Yeah.
All right.
So we're going to have like a cool studio where we can do game watches. And so
nice.
Like last year, Iowa's playing in the Big Ten championship game. We can get some fans and sit in there and drink some beer and we'll broadcast it. How sweet will that be?
That sounds great.
Yeah. All right. So we'll start with Iowa because you sent me an alarming email last night that you're starting to get nervous about South Dakota State. I tried telling you on Monday, like, this isn't a team to screw around with. Are you?
Yeah. And I knew.
Let me ask you that.
I know that they're number 2 in the country in FCS, but
is this an Iowa or a South Dakota State reason that you're all of a sudden getting nervous to this? Or is this like a Hassel anxiety thing? The closer you get to the game, because I know people like that. Where on Monday, we're gonna kill them, and then on Saturday it's like no, and you're finding every reason for your team to lose. What's going on?
I think it's mostly South Dakota State and what I've learned about them over the last few days. It's a little bit about Iowa and how they play. What scares me about South Dakota State is they are a really good team. They're used to winning. They went deep into the playoffs last year. They've beaten FBS teams before. I mean, they killed Colorado State last year. They beat them, I think, by more than Iowa did. But they have a tight end who is going to be somewhere between a first and a third round pick, I think, next year in the draft. And they have another tight end who could be on an NFL team as well. So they've got 2 great tight ends, and they've got it all going offensively. They've got the quarterback, they've got the running back, they've got the receivers, the tight ends, the line. So what scares me about that is that tells me, even though Iowa's defense is really good, I mean, one of the best in the country, I think, on paper coming in, I think South Dakota State's going to be able to score some points. I don't know if they'll reach, the 20-point mark, but they're going to be able to score some points. Is Iowa going to be able to score some points? Do you have faith in Spencer Petras to move this team down the field? Do you have faith in the offensive line to push South Dakota State around, get the running game going, and impose their will? The more I think about it, the more scared I get, just because I can see South Dakota State making some big plays and putting up some points, 3 touchdowns in this game. And in my mind, I can't really picture Iowa doing that. And now I think they will, but I'm trying to picture Spencer Petras completing some deep balls and some touchdown passes. And
to who?
Right. Wide receiver depth is a major issue, but I will say this: while I'm worried about this game more than I thought I would be, and worried about South Dakota State, I am not worried about the wide receivers for Iowa, because
it doesn't really matter.
Well, you can't worry about the pass catchers when you're not even sure the ball is going to be catchable. Why worry about the pass catchers when the passes might not be catchable? I think it's more about Spencer Petras and whether or not he can put the balls on target. I'm not worried about these a couple of walk-ons on the depth chart. They'll catch the football if it comes to them. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about Iowa putting up enough points. That's what scares me, because South Dakota State has a really good offense.
One thing too about these FCS teams, I would rather play like for Iowa. I'd rather play like one of those bad MAC schools in your first game than a South Dakota State. And there's a couple reasons.
You're right. I think South Dakota State's better than a lot of MAC teams.
Oh yeah, they'd be a very competitive MAC team. But the reason I say that too is like for these FCS schools, there's such a heightened. This game is all they've talked about for months, right? Like, and you saw it with North Dakota State when they went in there a few years ago. Like that, North Dakota State built their program by beating these FBS teams. Like that's how and then they would use that momentum and go into the FCS, and win a national championship. One of the things I think this will be really interesting to watch on Saturday for Iowa, because we've talked a lot about the offensive line, right? So you've hammered on Petrus. If you talk to coaches, because I've asked coaches why do these FCS teams seem to, like, for a casual football fan, you'd think that the lines would not match up, that the Big Ten line would be able to dominate the FCS line. And it's actually, there's two things here. One, you're getting South Dakota State when they're completely healthy. Nobody's dinged up. Everybody's primed, ready to go. Two, and a really important thing, is that these FCS lines are generally undersized. And it presents a different type of problem than an Iowa would normally see going through a Big Ten schedule. They stunt a lot. They do all kinds of crazy things because of the size differential. So that to me is just as interesting. That has always been, from my experience, one of the big reasons why Northern Iowa messes with Iowa State so much. Is Iowa State has generally had big offensive linemen and stuff, and they don't like messing with the athleticism of these undersized defensive tackles coming over from Cedar Falls. So, yeah, I think we kind of meet at the same spot. That we would probably both, I don't even know what the number is, but I think this is a low-scoring game. I still think Iowa wins it. I'm not picking a Hawkeye loss here.
Yeah,
but I don't think I would lay 15 points.
I'm not here saying that they're going to lose the game, and I'm really not that worried that they're going to lose the game. I'm worried that this is going to be a game, though. I do think South Dakota State poses some unique challenges. They're a really good team. It's the best South Dakota State team they think they've ever had. I was listening to the Murph and Andy show a couple of days ago. Zach Borg, a former colleague of mine at WHO-TV in Des Moines. Yeah. Borg called in. He works in, I think, Sioux Falls. So he covers South Dakota State and North Dakota State all the time.
I used to see him all the time when TJ was there. We'd bump into each other and give each other a high five.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, you're very familiar with South Dakota State with TJ.
Yep.
But he thinks that this is going to be a really good game into the fourth quarter. And this tight end that they have, it's either Kraft or Croft. I was watching an interview with him from the offseason, and he flat out came out and said, I was offered 6 figures to transfer to a major program, and I turned it down to stay here at South Dakota State, where I'm getting nothing other than my scholarship. And I've seen him on some mock drafts late in first rounds. I just and the thing is that, and Zach pointed this out in the interview, I guess I never really thought of the Dakotas growing up in Iowa. I just didn't. I've never even been to the Dakotas, but apparently they think about Iowa a lot. And there's a lot of people up there that follow the Iowa football program. And I'm sure there's a bunch of Nebraska fans too that might be a little bit older. I mean, that's kind of the closest, best program to that state. So this is huge for them to come to Iowa City and to face the Hawkeyes and have a chance to notch maybe the biggest win in program history and get this season off to an incredible start, a season that they think is going to be their best of all time.
Yeah, and Iowa would be ripe for that just because, well, how do you win at football? You have to score points, and no matter how good your defense is. I
can't picture Petrus throwing a touchdown because he threw one touchdown pass over the last 6 or 7 games of the season. We just haven't seen it.
What do you think on this? Because I don't know how to. I think Iowa's a little bit different because they've created turnovers so well consistently for so long. Like clearly, Phil Parker and that second, like they do something really well, right? I'm not trying to take away from it. Their turnover margin's been so good. They've created so many takeaways, right, for so many years. Does that even out at some point? Like, you worry about that as an Iowa fan?
You were talking about this on Monday's pod too. Can you rely on that each and every year to be, plus 15 turnover margin?
If this turnover margin's on Saturdays 0-0 or 1-1, like, it's a good game, right?
Oh, yeah, I would think so. I just got a text from my dad, Don Hassel. He says, Iowa 38, San Diego State 10. No way South Dakota State 10. No way South Dakota State can score on that Iowa defense. By the way, my dad has predicted a 10-2 season for Iowa with wins over Michigan and Ohio State.
Who are you losing
I believe
to?
something like a 7-0 start. So
you're losing to Purdue then? Like, who are you losing to if you're 10-2?
My dad has them losing to Purdue and Minnesota.
The Purdue deal, like, do you hate them after they took your guys?
That sucks, man. But I don't.
Those are two guys. Like, they're like real dudes. Those aren't like backups. Those are real guys who really have helped.
But you can't blame them. Like, you understand it. Like, why wouldn't you? If you were one of those kids, why wouldn't you do that? You see Purdue come in here, Kinnick Stadium, throw it all over the yard, run you out of the building, where you just can't get anything going offensively through the air throughout the entire season. Why wouldn't you want to go play there?
Do you hate Purdue now? Like, is that like your new Northwestern? Where no.
I mean, Purdue still is just kind of a pain in the ass. Kind of like, I mean, I don't hate Northwestern. I don't like playing Northwestern because it's never that fun. And Purdue though there's just a little bit different. They just feel like they have Iowa's number. I've never felt that about Northwestern. Yes, they've beaten Iowa. Pat Fitzgerald is a great coach, but Purdue, no. I mean, I respect them because they'll come in and just whip your ass, and you won't even know what happened.
Penn State, Purdue tonight on Fox.
I love that game. I think that's a really intriguing game.
I'm going to pick Purdue in the upset for what it's worth.
What is it, 3.5?
At home. 3.5, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're giving me the hook there, I think I would be on the Purdue side as well. At home, I just don't think people realize how good Aiden O'Connell is, how good that offense is, how tough they are to stop. And I think they could be a contender in the division this year. I mean, it's Wisconsin, it's Iowa, and I think it's Purdue. I mean, until I see it from a Minnesota, I would never pick Minnesota to win.
The West has a bunch of those programs where you're just kind of like, I mean, you'd even like.
Well, then you have Northwestern that Northwestern will win 3 games last year, and then they'll come and challenge for a Big Ten title this season. I mean, they don't make any sense. But I don't think they're going to be in the running for it either.
I like their quarterback though. I feel like they at least have a little stability there now, where they haven't in recent years. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Regani's out for Iowa. You're not worried about the wide receivers. Anything else we need to pick off the bone for South Dakota State, Iowa? I think we both see it going the same way. I think that going into the fourth quarter, Iowa fans will feel like they're going to win the game, but it won't be necessarily locked up. You're going to have to play a full deal.
Yeah, one of those games where you just have kind of a knot in your stomach the whole way, unless Spencer Petras does stuff we haven't seen since early on last season. I hope we do. I hope the offensive line can push some people around and Petrus can get the ball out. But this game does scare me a little bit.
Iowa State hosting Southeast Missouri State.
That one does not scare me a little bit. That one doesn't scare me at all, nor should it any Iowa State fan.
I want to give a shout out to Trent Condon from KXNO.
For what, getting you the lines for this game?
Yeah. He actually, so I'm doing a picks column for Cyclone Fanatic now with all the Big 12 games this year, so we can see how bad I am against the number. And there were like 4 games where Trent had to go to like Costa Rica to find a point spread for me.
He always finds them though, doesn't he?
Oh yeah. He's got guys all over the world. He's got like Russian bookies, 37.5. Iowa State is a favorite over the Red Hawks from Southeast Missouri State. Stansbury pulled this stat that they have like 38 or something like 38 or 40 freshmen on this team who are scholarship guys. They only get 65 scholarships. 37.5. Like I don't feel greedy saying I want like a cold-hearted blowout by Iowa State.
I mean, you should absolutely want that against a not so good FCS team. Now, I know the Ohio Valley isn't a good football conference, but I believe they're picked second in that conference.
I think so too. Yeah,
I think they finished second or third last year, and they're picked second this year, which is surprising if they do have so many freshmen on the team. But I mean, that might just speak to how bad that conference is at the FCS level in football.
See, and this is different too, because I just talked about defensive lines, FCS defensive lines and whatnot. I don't think that Iowa State is an offensive line concern, right? Like that's where we're all kind of like, got to see that group. But I don't know if you're really going to be able to learn much from this game. I really don't.
No.
Iowa, I think we'll be able to pick something up from that. Like, how does this group look? Because South Dakota State's got like real dudes. I think that you're just going to see a ton of big plays, like a 70-yard pass, right? Like, I think this is going to be similar to the Monroe game from a few years ago. I don't expect you to remember that, but Iowa State scored like 70 in that game. And I think if they want to, they should be able to do that against SEMO.
To your point about wanting to play a MAC team instead of South Dakota State, if you're Iowa, it's like from a national perspective, people don't really look at these two games, these two opponents that Iowa and Iowa State have that much differently. I mean, you have to know college football and FCS football to know how much different these opponents are. Southeast Missouri State and South Dakota State. I mean, South Dakota State would be a 25-point favorite against Southeast Missouri State. But if Iowa struggles with South Dakota State and Iowa State struggles with Southeast Missouri State, I think both teams will be looked at the exact same way. That's the problem with playing a really good FCS team.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. South Dakota State could – I mean, if you stack them up against every team in the Big Ten, they could beat probably 3 or 4 of them. You could probably say that about the Big 12 too, right? Like that's where SEMO would be a 20-point underdog to anybody in those two leagues.
Yeah.
I'm not like, I know Iowa State fans are going to say, well, what about the offensive line? And I don't think you're going to learn anything. I think, sure, I want to see Hunter Deckers, no doubt, live reps again in front of 60,000 people, all that. I want him to look sharp. But again, like is
it going to be 60,000 people? Last I heard from Pollard, it was about 57,000, right?
I have no idea. I'm just, I guess.
What's going on? Wait, come on, buy some. I mean, this is going to be a good team. I think people are sleeping on this team a little bit.
I won't lie. I'm a little surprised that they haven't sold it out. Like I thought that. I don't know. Like I really don't know why. Maybe Iowa sold out like all their games, right?
Yeah, it's stunning. That's really surprising to me that Iowa did it.
Iowa State usually is like like that, and then Iowa's having to give away like free pizza or something, right? Like, or that's
the basketball team. Yeah. Well, we ask Bohannon about that.
We'll have to. Oh, but they had a good first show. I don't know if you listened to it. Those guys are coming together a little bit. Jared and Jay.
Yeah, I like the
there you go.
Dumbass of the week. Oh yeah, there it is. We're close to 57K for the opener. Several days to go. Still an opportunity to purchase seats for Saturday's game. Pollard tweeted that out yesterday. But they haven't sold out any game, correct? Like the Baylor game, the
not that
Oklahoma
I'm aware
game?
of. If they have, I've missed it, but I don't really sit around looking for attendance numbers like I used to either. There you go. Your dad's chiming in. He says, Iowa State 45-24. He calls Iowa State Ames. That's a little disrespectful.
Ames. Yeah, he won't say Iowa State.
Yeah. We need to get our dads on a podcast together. That would be a hell of a time. My dad hates Iowa. We grew up and we had like season tickets to Iowa.
That would be a good podcast.
Dad has seen how mean Iowa fans have been to me on the internet and just hates them now. Absolutely hates Iowa. Like, look, it's not. I'm sure
I get it. I get it.
Got to be something to that. Your dad probably seen Iowa State fans call you an idiot a million times and probably feels the same way.
Honestly, though, I've gotten a lot more hate from Iowa fans than Iowa State fans, especially the last 5 to 10 years. When I first started out in Des Moines, it was all coming mostly from Iowa State. Now, Iowa fans would get after me sometimes when I, make fun of them on Sound Off or whatever, because I'm an equal opportunity harasser. If
little lick, a lot of bite.
Little lick, a lot of bite. A lot of people wanted either wanted me fired or wanted my credentials revoked from Iowa City. So no, I think that's a testament to my dad's love for the Hawkeyes, because there are a lot of Hawkeye fans who don't like me, and he still defends everything about the program.
I had this was too conservative. I wrote my Big 12 picks column yesterday. I wish I would have gone more. I'm going to change it right now. 56-7 Iowa State.
56-7. So you think that they're just going to keep the pedal to the metal the whole game?
Well, is that a lock? Man, we
locked away in a prison cell.
It sounded like the Farrar school this last weekend. Lockers shaking. No, I just
lock it away.
I feel like because of their depth chart and because of all the young guys, that it's like an open competition on Saturday where they're going to keep calling real plays and stuff like that too. I think they're going to try and run up the score, but it's hard to tell. They've got 4 guys who could be their starting running back in theory. It's hard to tell the third string guy not to hit that hole, right? They've got – this is the deal with this Iowa State team compared to others from what I've been told, is they have real depth. Back in the day when you covered Iowa State, Hassel, if Jake Knott got hurt, the whole defense was done.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah,
and now they actually have depth, so they've recruited better. Like, they've got like the 5 best recruiting classes in school history in a row. So I think they want to see what these guys can do against another opponent leading into next week with the Cyhawk game. All right, moving on. You got anything else on Iowa State, or are you good?
I don't. I hopefully we won't have that much else on that game, because it should just be a game to everybody feel good about themselves. Everybody get in the end zone. It's just kind of a celebration of the new season beginning, and then turn your sights to the Cyhawk game.
You've got a couple of what you're calling fraudulent marquee matchups in week 1.
Yes, the marquee matchups, because you go at a national level, and we've done it at CBS Sports HQ, and every national outlet's going to do it. You're gonna gravitate toward the Ohio State, Notre Dame. That's a top 5 showdown. Georgia, Oregon. That's a top 11 showdown. Both of those games, in my mind, those are fraudulent marquee matchups, because Those are 3-score spreads. Those games are not expected to be close. Oregon's not going to be able to hang with Georgia. Georgia defense is going to suffocate them. And Ohio State should run away from Notre Dame at the shoe. I mean, in my mind, those aren't the games that we really should be giving so much attention to. We're just doing it because of the rankings and the names, the prestige. Ooh, Notre Dame's going to the Horseshoe. It's cool. I'll tune in. Absolutely. I'll have it on for the first half. And I hope that Notre Dame and Oregon can make those games. I just don't see it happening. I mean, Ohio State is so much better, more talented than Notre Dame. And I think it's ridiculous that Notre Dame is ranked 5th. That's
no doubt. I'm completely agree.
Their over-under win total is 8.5.
Yeah, them and Oklahoma have no business being where they're at.
In Ohio State is a clear-cut national championship contender. They got the Heisman favorite. That should be a blowout. And I don't think Oregon is going to be able to score much on Georgia either. And that's basically, it's a de facto home game for Georgia. It's in Atlanta. I think smart football fans see through it. The casuals, all they care about this weekend is those big matchups that we're putting the spotlight on. Those aren't the best games of the week, Chris. They're not.
No. So that's why we created this next segment that we're going to do every week during the season. Excuse me. The two guys named Chris, top 3 games of the weekend. Really, really original. But I think this will be fun to do because we're not going to pick like, number 2 versus number 3. Or like, we're going to go like, which games just personally are we most interested in? You'll probably gravitate more towards the Big 10. I'll probably gravitate a lot towards Big 12. You cover a lot of Conference USA, so you're going to be able to teach us a lot about some of these. You've done some Mountain West, like a lot about these Group of 5 schools that
American.
A lot of our
I like Group of 5. You can have a great matchup in the Group of 5, and we'll give
absolutely. You some. So I think this will be a fun way for us to cover the whole map.
Do we want to try to pick 3 separate games? Can we overlap at all?
I think it'll be fun if we don't tell each other going into it.
Okay. Fair enough.
But we can't do Iowa and Iowa State, right?
No Iowa and Iowa State. And no cherry picking, the 1 versus 2.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like some weeks there might be like if number 1 versus number 2, I mean, maybe that's one. But I think that we get a little more obscure with these. Sure. Show the rest of the map. You want to go first or you want me to?
You go first.
All right, number 3 for me is Cincinnati at Arkansas.
Great game.
Arkansas, 7.5-point favorite. It started at 6, steamed up. For 2 reasons. Arkansas thinks they're going to be pretty good. We'll see. Are they going to be pretty good nationally or pretty good like for their standards is a different conversation. Cincinnati's really fascinating to me, though. You lose a lot of your big-name guys, right, to the draft. You come off of your playoff appearance. But, like, Luke Fickell, to me, this isn't a program that's just going to go from the playoff to all of a sudden they're 6-6 and on a rebuild. Like, I think that I don't know if Cincinnati will win this game, but I'm really interested to see how they perform at a good SEC team in week 1. If they go in there and win this game, what's to say they're not going to run the table again and be a playoff contender? I don't know. And this is one of the things, Hassel, like going into week 1, we don't really, if we're being honest, we don't really know anything about hardly any of these teams because college coaches are so protective of information and whatnot. And now in the
someone won't even release a depth chart.
Yeah. The depth chart Matt Campbell put out is just garbage. Like, it's just, he's telling us Jake Remsburg's day-to-day. He's not day-to-day. Like, right? Like, so it's, we don't know anything. And Cincinnati's one of those teams where, okay, I guess I wouldn't be surprised if they would lose by 2 touchdowns here. I wouldn't be surprised if they won it. And so I'm really intrigued by that. I think it could have national implications.
Yeah, I talked to Josh Pate and Danny Cannell about this game yesterday. We broke it down. And Pate's actually going to this game. Pate can go to any game he wants for his this year. He's calling it his Every Given Saturday tour for Late Kick. He's going to that game. He thinks it's going to be the best game of the weekend. And he said, look, nobody is picking Cincinnati outright. Nobody. He said, we'll see. He thinks that's going to be a really good game, and Cincinnati has a chance. That's a great pick.
In Cincinnati, like, they're used to big spots. Like, they're not going to go into Arkansas and be intimidated, or they do this all the time.
But it's going to be a great atmosphere because you're right. Arkansas fans are jacked up about this season. My best friend from high school is a huge Arkansas fan. He thinks they're winning 10+ this year.
Wow. Okay. Number 2 is tonight. I almost put this as number 1, but it's West Virginia at Pitt, the backyard brawl for the first time since 2011, I think. Great piece by Ross Dillinger of Sports Illustrated this week about the history of this game and how it came back. Shout out to both athletic directors and schools for actually playing this game. This is same with, we kind of hit on Nebraska, Oklahoma, renewing that, right? This is good for college football. This is the prime ESPN game tonight. Pitt is really interesting with Keldon Slovis coming to replace Kenny Pickett. They got to replace their offensive coordinator, but the entire offensive line is back for a top 25 team. And they've got like 3 of their best running back. I think Pitt's going to be pretty good. I'm really curious from a Big 12 standpoint with West Virginia, JT Daniels starting for Neil Brown there. West Virginia is just a little bit, to a lesser extent, like the Big 12's Nebraska right now, Hassel, where it's like every year I feel like Neil Brown might get them over the hump and, really establish them as an upper tier program in that league. And he hasn't been able to do it yet. He hasn't had as much time as Frost. That's probably not a great comparison, but the West Virginia fans are really confident, and I don't quite know. I would pick Pitt to win this game, but if West Virginia could go on the road and win this one, like, I think that would be a statement in the Big 12 and what we think is a wide open Big 12. So just it's hard to find week 1 games where like both sides like really hate each other and care. And this is probably of all of them, the biggest one of this.
It's a shame they don't play this every year. As we've read about, we've talked about West Virginia in the Big 12. It doesn't make any sense. They've lost all their regional rivalries basically. So it's good that they have this one back this year. Pittsburgh. Did you see Desmond Howard's college football playoff prediction?
I did. I heard he's got Pittsburgh in the playoff.
Yeah, he's got Pittsburgh in it. And there's a lot of people that are high on them, even though they lost Kenny Pickett and they lost the number 1 wide receiver in college football last year to USC. Yeah. This is going to be fun. I'm really excited to kick off the weekend with this one.
Last for me, number 1, I like that it's standalone. Florida State at LSU. You've got the Brian Kelly storyline. Florida State, I love Mike Norvell. Iowa State played them in a Liberty Bowl when Mike Norvell was at Memphis. I followed them last year with Chubba Purdy being there. He's at Nebraska now, but kept an eye on them. I've always been, Hassel, you probably need to learn this about me. I'm not like fanatical about it. I've always been a closet Florida State fan, and it goes back to my.
You're talking to me like we haven't known each other for almost 20 years. I'm well aware of this, Chris.
Well, I got to tell the audience then. Okay. But
okay.
They've always been like, I started rooting for them when they beat Nebraska in the Orange Bowl in the 90s because I hated Nebraska so much. And I was like,
for guys our age, late 30s, when we were growing up and starting to watch sports, Florida State was the it team.
Yeah.
The awesome
Tomahawk
logo.
Chop, Charlie Ward. Yeah. So that I'll be rooting for Florida State, obviously, in that one. But LSU's interesting too. I think I have an over on Florida State as far as the ticket goes for their win total, and they played Duquesne or whoever it was, so you can't really take anything from it.
Florida State fans are they're feeling themselves now though after that victory over Duquesne. They really put a lot of stock into that. They think they're going to win this game outright. This was Danny Cannell's upset special. Big surprise. Wow. Danny Cannell, former Florida State quarterback. Okay. He thinks they're going to win this game. But this is in the Superdome. LSU always plays well there. It's a home game de facto neutral, but it's a home game for LSU. See what Brian Kelly can do with this. He's got questions at quarterback. Where are they going to go? They've had a back and forth battle all summer long, and Florida State. There's a lot of Florida State fans that think this is the year they finally turned it around. So that is going to be a good game. That's Sunday night.
Yes.
That's the Sunday game, right?
I believe so, because then you have
standalone Sunday, and then Monday it's Clemson, Georgia Tech.
Yes, which that'll be terrible. Georgia Tech's awful.
Yes,
like really, really could be historically bad from what I've read. But
so that's your number one game of the week.
Yeah, what do you got? What's your top three?
Well, I'm starting right there. That's my number 3 game of the week, and we've kind of gone over this already. I think this is going to be a really fun game, and I like that it's on Sunday, and it's not competing with anything else. With Brian Kelly factor, the LSU quarterback factor, and just 2 huge brands going at it in really a game that looks like a toss-up. So that's my 3rd best game. My 2nd best game is one I don't think you would pick. Houston coming to the Big 12 next year.
Yep.
4-point favorites. That's all. On the road in the Alamo Dome against UTSA, UT San Antonio, the Roadrunners. Now, this is a team that won double-digit games last season. They were ranked at the end of the year. I saw them several times in person. They won Conference USA. They're the favorites to win it again this season. They returned pretty much all of their key players. At home in the Alamo Dome, which is going to be packed and loud, that the fan base has really gotten behind them there in San Antonio. This is going to be a fun spot because it's a Houston team that thinks this is the year for New Year's 6, maybe even a dark horse run to the college football playoff. They have a lot of talent. Of course, familiar with Dana Holgorsen, who was at West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a really tough start to the season where you have to go on the road against a team that not a lot of people know that much about, and you're only a 4-point favorite. I think that I think that this is going to be has a potential to be a really fun game and a great atmosphere.
That's a great game. Yeah, UTSA was one of the best stories in college football last year. I thought they were just they're fun. I kind of got behind them and bet on them a lot. Houston thinks that they could be this year's Cincinnati. Have you gotten that vibe?
Yes, absolutely. And I've talked to some experts who believe that Houston is that group of 5 team that could make that run this season, and that the schedule is pretty favorable because they avoid, I think, 2 of the top 3 other teams in the American in the regular season. Now, they might end up having to play Cincinnati in the American championship game, but I think they avoid Cincinnati and UCF in the regular season. So they get past the non-conference because I think they have to go to Texas Tech after this as well. So that's another tough road game in state. Yeah. They win those 2 games, then I think all of a sudden people might be talking, wow, this Houston team could run the table. Are they the team that becomes this year's Cincinnati?
Yeah, so there's national implications on that game. What a buzzsaw, though, going into San Antonio, that Alamo Dome. Have you ever watched Iowa play there? Have you been there for one of those games?
I have not been. For the Alamo Bowl, no.
You can get
Big
pretty
Ten
loud.
lost that tie-in, and you guys got it in the Big 12. That's a great bowl game, and it's a fun city. I'm calling.
All right, number 3.
I'm calling some games at UTSA this season. You mean number 1?
Who's their coach again? UTSA. He's a great story. Do you know off the top of your head?
He was a high school coach.
Yeah, there's a good story here. I knew that.
Just took over last season, and I think started 10-0. This guy, he's just a really nice guy who knows how to coach football. He is just a football coach, and should have been Jeff Traylor. Could have been, in my opinion, the national coach of the year last year. I think they only lost 1 game, but that's my number 2 game of the weekend. My top game of the weekend, and I'm surprised this wasn't on your list, Utah going to the Swamp. This is a This is a really intriguing matchup. You got Florida State with new head coach Billy Napier at home as an underdog in non-conference play. Utah, a really sexy, sleek preseason pick to go to the college football playoff. And you have two quarterbacks who are dark horse Heisman Trophy candidates going into the season. Anthony Richardson at Florida, they think he could have a real breakout year, and Cameron Rising for Utah, who had just a magnificent season out of nowhere last year. This is my number one game of the weekend. It's going to be a great atmosphere. In Utah, a favorite at the Swamp. I can't wait for that one.
Have you ever had any run-ins with Utah's fan base?
Never. And why have you?
Well, with this whole Big 12 versus Pac-12 thing.
Okay. No, in fact, I've never met a Utah fan.
They're the worst. I honestly think it's the worst fan base I've ever dealt with.
Well, they're passionate in Utah. I've called a bunch of college football games at Utah State. Between Utah State, BYU, and Utah, all kind of in that Salt Lake City area. I mean, they are passionate sports fans.
One thing I have learned is that the Holy War, so I've befriended BYU fans on the Twitter machine, and the Holy War is kind of a whole different deal than what we have going on here with Cyhawk. Like the level of hate. I mean, I guess they call it the Holy War for a reason, but
because it's kind of a religious thing.
Yeah. And I made some like joking kind of tweets that I was a big BYU guy. I hate Utah and all this stuff. And like the level of vitriol that was coming at me from these Ute fans, that was really, really, really intense. I don't think I was quite prepared to jump into the Holy War, but I'm all in now. I'm a BYU guy. So I'm with you. Like, I'm very interested in this game. Give me Florida. I'm rooting for Florida here because I can't handle Utah going to the college football playoff. That would be really bad for me personally. But there's another aspect of this game that I think is interesting, and it kind of goes into the Michigan conversation with the quarterbacks that I've thought a little deeper about. Is Harbaugh could be trying to keep both of those guys at Michigan, right? Because you can just transfer now. Like, it's just a totally different world we live in. And Florida had a lot of problems, if you read, with their collective, right? Where they didn't think that, their point being, it may be the first game for Billy Napier. But when you look at what he's getting paid, you look at the setup of, the future of college football, I think it's safe to say, like, there will already be people doubting him if they lose this opening game to Utah.
There have already been people doubting him because he got off to a really rough start on the recruiting trail. Now, things kind of picked up toward the end of the offseason, toward the end of this latest recruiting cycle, and he's won some favor with the fans. But you're right. I mean, you lose your first game at home. I can't imagine that there are many Florida first-year head coaches who would have lost. Nori. No. Sorry. Our dog Nori just had ACL and meniscus surgery. She's got the cone of shame on. And she heard somebody at the door.
I had to put Dirks in his kennel because on Monday, he started eating all the trash from my trash can here. So I locked him up so that I didn't have that problem. But yeah, he's on prednisone. Have you ever had to put your dog on a steroid and then they just eat everything?
I don't think so. Really?
Yeah, he'll eat anything.
Is that what Sosa and McGuire were like in the late 90s, you think? They just ate everything? Just
probably. They needed calories.
Yeah. Needle in one hand and a hamburger in the other. No, you're right. I mean, if they lose this game, even though Utah's favored and Utah is expected to have a much better season than Florida, you ratchet that pressure up right away. And as I was saying before Nori interrupted me, I can't imagine that there are many first-year Florida head coaches that lost their first home game. I can't imagine that. Normally, I think you start with a better, a more favorable matchup.
Feels like not that long ago, Dan Mullen was like the guy.
Yeah, it went so wrong so fast.
Oh,
and it mostly happened on the recruiting trail. Recruiting
was a
is so
can't
important.
miss.
And
he was a can't miss. He was one of the, like, Frost was like that, where it's just like there's certain hires where you're like, oh, this is a can't miss. And Dan Mullen was like that.
Nebraska and North Dakota, that was not one of our games to watch this week.
No,
it's not North Dakota State. It's
North Dakota. The Sioux,
So
the Fighting Sioux, I believe.
yeah, that should be a romp for Nebraska. The win by 50+ fan base will get all puffed
Frothy.
up again. Yeah.
Shout out to Fareway Meat and Grocery, the exclusive title sponsor of two guys named Chris. If you're tailgating in Ames or Iowa City, we would encourage you to stop at a local Fareway store on your way to load up and support
Chris,
our sponsor in Iowa everywhere.
Where did the most people consume our first show? Was it on Twitter? Was it on Apple Podcasts? Where was it?
I think, I would have to completely crunch the numbers. I would say Apple Podcasts would be number one as far as people listening to the entire hour. I think
I'm getting a lot of DMs, Chris. Getting a lot of DMs.
Yeah, a lot of
Twitter executives in coming on board with Iowa everywhere. Oh yeah.
All right. CEOs major companies.
I don't know why they think I'm in charge. I guess my name's Chris. Yeah. I'll send them your way.
Brett McMurphy reporting that Oregon and Washington have now both met with the Big Ten.
It's got to be happening, right? I mean, it's got to.
Here's what's weird. Like, you don't normally get these type of, like, matter-of-fact reports when it comes to this stuff. Like, when USC and UCLA just happened.
Right. And same with Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, it was just out of nowhere, gone.
And if you think back to when the missile crisis started in 2010, like, I mean, we knew that the Big 12 was kind of messed up, but like they all kind of just, I don't know. I'm with you. I think that it's somewhat inevitable, but it all comes down to as well with the Big 12 happening to put out a press release yesterday that it had opened its media rights negotiations with Fox and ESPN. I talked with some people at the Big 12 about this, and I mean, basically you're negating the Pac-12's one advantage was that the Pac-12 had hardcore, like, numbers, real numbers that they could take to their people and say, this is what you'll make if you sign a new grant of rights here. Well, the Big 12 now can get real numbers and not just projections. And
so are they looking at the numbers that that they will get with the 4 teams that are going to be added and without Oklahoma and Texas?
Yes.
Are they also going to?
Yeah.
Are they also going to plug and play in there? Like, oh, what if we add Arizona and Arizona State and Utah and Colorado?
I think so. Yeah, I think that this is a ploy by the Big 12 to be able to kind of, put the carrot out there for those schools. Another interesting part of this is that if ESPN is truly talking to the Big 12, which Pete Thamel is the guy who reported this, and he works for ESPN, so I can't imagine he's wrong on what he's reporting. Very possible, I'm told, almost likely, that this will speed up and expedite the Texas to Oklahoma move to the SEC.
And I think that's a good thing, don't you?
For everybody, move on.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I mean, there should not be a Big 12 that includes Cincinnati and Oklahoma. When those 4 teams come in, Texas and Oklahoma should go out. I mean, I don't want to see that conference for a year or two. I want to see it like it's going to be. Speed it up. Why wait? Agree on a fee and move on.
Yeah. I think they'll make it, Chris, so it's advantageous for the Big 12 to let them out. Because right now the Big 12 is like, well, they have these exit fees, and right? Like it's all about money. We know this. I think ESPN could do it because a lot of Big 12 fans are like, well, why are you talking to ESPN? They tried to kill your conference. And like you only have so many options, right? Because I don't think CBS or NBC are probably going to be too serious about the Big 12 now that they have the Big 10. I think the ESPN could say, listen, we'll pay you more than you're actually worth if you let them out of their agreement. And so you're going to have a better deal. And with that, ESPN can get its new SEC going, which is going to make them more money than what they would be paying over the Big 12. And it kind of resets everything with college football at the same time when USC and UCLA go to the Big 10. So I think that's the ideal situation for everybody.
It is. And college football fans as well. Where it's ideal for ESPN because you're starting with your new SEC the same time that the other networks are going to be starting with the new Big 10, adding USC and UCLA. The reason I think that this Washington-Oregon thing is going to happen is because I just can't see the Big 10 leaving USC and UCLA out there all by themselves with no one else that's even close travel-wise. I think they have to add some more West Coast teams to this conference to make it viable schedule and travel-wise.
That, and don't you think, maybe I'm completely wrong here. Maybe I'm giving these decision makers too much credit, which is very possible. But don't you think that USC and UCLA, before they did this, would be like, hey, what are the long-term plans? Right? Or are we going to have to be traveling?
Did they, or did they just say, oh, that much? Oh, God, yes, let's do it. Who cares about the travel?
You might be right. You might be right. But the closest campus to LA is Nebraska.
Yeah.
1,500 miles. Like Wall Street Journal did a phenomenal piece on this a couple weeks ago about, they basically were like preview, like, because football is not a big deal. You only travel like 5 times a year or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like for the basketball teams and for like the volleyball teams, and they're going to have to be gone for like 2 weeks at a time for it to truly make sense. And that's assuming they're still, most volleyball programs don't take charter flights. Now, maybe they will in this new Big 10.
What are they going to be connecting through Denver on
right?
the way to go through Denver?
Good luck getting,
and then to Chicago, and then how are you getting to Penn State? How are you getting there? Like if you're not chartering, you're not flying into an airport near Happy Valley.
How are you getting to West Lafayette?
Yeah, it's sad, but we're always looking out for the student athlete, Chris.
That's a good way to end it. So what are you're just sitting around and watching games this weekend? You don't
Oh,
have to
yeah,
work,
I can't
right?
wait. I can't
awesome.
wait. Yeah, I since I called the game week 0, I don't have a game this weekend, and it's really rare for me to have a college football Saturday off. So I'm gonna just soak up as much college football goo as I can.
That's great.
You're gonna
be just salivating to get here on Monday morning.
Yes, absolutely. I'll be coming with material. Hey, I've got I don't have like a TV room like some of our friends have, and you might have, but I go and I grab with the streaming devices, the Rokus and all that. I go and I grab 3 TVs and I put them right next to each other. So I've got 3 games going at once. I've got my, the laptop, my phone. So just give it to. I haven't had this feeling since March Madness. It's been so long since I've gotten the TVs out and lined them all up. But it's back, baby. I'm
best
so
of luck
happy.
to your Hawkeyes.
Yeah, I don't think Iowa State's going to need any luck. That Iowa game might be interesting.
Fun first week, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Appreciate y'all for listening. Please rate, subscribe, review.
Because of the algorithms, right? Not for us.
Big algorithms, guy.
We don't care if we get a 5-star review. We just need it for the algorithm.
I'm just being honest with you. Transparency is the number one thing you can do. And I'm telling you guys, if you want to help us out, if you rate and review and subscribe, like that helps the algorithms. We're big algorithm guys.
Whatever that means. I trust you, though, Chris. I trust you.
Stop on off at a Fareway. Get yourself a bundle of meat on your way to Ames in Iowa City. Have a great weekend. Enjoy week 1, everybody.